Welcome to the Actual Fluency Podcast. Each week you'll find inspirational, motivational interviews with some of the world's best language learners, industry experts, all trying to help you to learn foreign languages better, faster, and more efficiently. And here we go. This episode is brought to you by the italki Goals Competition, where you can win up to $500 of italki credits and $500 towards a flight ticket of your choice. All you have to do is take a picture or record a video of you saying your language goals for 2019 and sharing them with italki on social media. For full details on how to enter the competition, go to actualfluency.com/goals. Hello everyone and welcome to Actual Fluency Podcast episode 141, and today I'm chatting with Anja Spilker, who has set up her own language learning company in Mexico, originally from Germany. So we're talking a little bit about that, but the main focus of today's episode is a kind of a serious one. Anja and I talk in depth about how we both used language learning and traveling to an extent to kind of shake things up, reboot what had become kind of a terrible mental, psychological state. So we talk a little bit about what it means to be stuck and how, and some techniques that we've used to move forward in our lives. It's different for everyone, and it's important that I say this, that nothing in this episode is medical advice. Like it's not professional in any way. We might sound like it at sometimes, that the things we say are absolutely 100% verifiably true, but if you are dealing with any kind of problems in your life or mental struggles, it's very important that you go to the people who are actually trained in this. And for many countries you have the helplines, the online chat, where you can anonymously just call and talk to people about your situation. They've been trained to help you. So, and what I would say is, start with going to your doctor. That's a really good place to start. If you have a GP or a private physician you can go to, they're usually a good starting point, and they can usually refer you to further on if you qualify, or if there are any problems. And obviously you can also try medical solutions, and they work for a lot of people, so it's worth giving a bash. But otherwise, with all those disclaimers, let's jump into this week's pretty serious episode. I just wanted to give you some background as well. This wasn't intended to be part of the episode. Anja did reach out to me before we went to record it to say that some of the previous episodes that where I had talked about depression and feeling kind of down, and how language learning naturally helped me get out of that to a certain extent. It was never meant to be that topic of the episode, but the first question I asked Anja is why she left Germany and moved to France when she was younger, and her response kind of surprised me, and we had a really good long talk, and I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next week for more language learning podcasts. So see you then. Well, Anja, welcome to the Actual Fluency Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. And
thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And before we get started into the deeper topics, can you just give the audience a quick primer of who you are, where you're from, and what sort of language journey you've been on?
Sure. Well, so my name is Anja. On social media, it's Anja from Alemania. Alemania, like the Spanish, Alemania means Germany. For those of you who don't speak Spanish. I live in Mexico, and my language journey, I think for me it's all about how you practice your languages. And I used to live in different countries of the world, and this is basically where I started practicing and learning different languages. So born and raised in Germany, but then I moved in 2007, I moved to France. So after that I had a pretty good French level, and then after that I moved to the French part of Switzerland to study there. I moved to Canada to improve my English, and also a bit to the French part of Canada. And and basically this is how I got interested in this whole language life, because I've realized how much fun it is, and also yeah, all the advantages that it actually has.
Cool.
So I moved to Mexico about 5 years ago, and it's actually mostly here where I started learning other languages without living in the country. I didn't do this before. And this is a, well, complete different experience, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can definitely talk about that in a second because I'd be interested to hear kind of your thoughts on it. I did the same in Denmark. I was learning Russian, and then I tried to learn Hungarian in Hungary. So we can definitely talk a little bit about that. But before, I just want to just get a little bit better feel for like your what background, so to speak. Um, so
Mhm.
so you're traveling a lot at an early age. Was that inspired by family, or was it your career, or what kind of? A lot of people they don't really move countries. So
Hmm.
what caused you to get up and get out of Germany for some time?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And maybe 10 years ago, I would have said maybe it was really for the language part, or I really wanted to learn those languages, and that was the main reason. 10 years later, to be very honest, and I think this is the case of many, many people, sometimes even without knowing it, is that you might also run away from something,
Mm.
right? When you leave your home country, I think it's also, yeah, a kind of, there is always something happening in your life that you don't want to deal with, maybe even.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really it took me 10 years to realize that, and also to work on this. And this is also the other part. When you move to other countries, it's not only this like language learning part, which is definitely great, but I think it's also this part of everything that comes with it, that you learn about yourself. Maybe also the distance to your family helps a lot to improve relationships. And yeah, I think for me, 10 years later, I think I'd say that it was definitely also running away, like going out of something. I come from a very, very small town in Germany, and I always felt that I would never really like fit.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I think this was definitely a very, very big reason why I started all this. And then once you have this feeling of how it is to be away, to travel, to find yourself as well, it's kind of, you can't stop until maybe the point where you finally realize, or where you step by step realize what you really need to work on, which is, yeah, very personal, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. But that's very interesting. I'm sure a lot of people listening would have had similar experiences of running away to, so to speak. I mean, that sounds very negative. I wish there was a better term for it, but definitely maybe dodging, dodging
Yeah,
dealing
yeah,
with your main problems or something. I don't know.
mhm,
I
yeah,
don't know these things, but that's definitely true. I feel like some people they just like they need to start fresh maybe, or just like hit the reset button a little bit, and maybe the only way to do that is to just get a little bit out of the known comfort zone. I would definitely say
yeah,
that my traveling, I didn't used to travel very much except for like family holidays to really hot places when I was a kid. I didn't really travel that much outside of that, and when I grew older, I would have a trip here and there, but nothing serious. And then for the last couple of years, I've been traveling a lot, and like you said, I think it really helps to find yourself, and it
yeah,
helps to learn what's important, and
yeah,
through
yeah.
other cultures and people understand your own better as well. So that's pretty
Exactly.
cool.
And to deal with those things, because what I've learned during the past years, and well, this is just life teaches you, right?
Mm,
And I think this is just something that you also just understand with the distance that you have when you travel, I think, and also especially when you travel alone. And when you travel alone, there's basically two advantages. Also, the one advantage is that you need to talk to natives. So in terms of languages, this is perfect, the best ever.
yeah.
But also, I think it helps you to take the time, or to really, yeah, take your time to also be upset, to I don't know, to analyze yourself, and to I don't know, look for solutions as well, how to deal with certain situations. And I think really everybody has something. Mostly it's from the childhood, I'd say, but I think we all have this, and I feel still very, very sad that this is in society still not a topic to like freely talk about, and I wish it was. But I think like podcasts like yours, for example, help people to connect with that, and to maybe to start talking about it, and to start getting inspired, and working on those things as well.
Yeah, it's breaking the cycle really that's gonna change everything. And for me, language learning definitely did that because it was like, okay, now I'm gonna do this new thing, and there was really no reason to do it at that time other than I was just sitting at home, having nothing else to do, and life wasn't
Hmm.
really going anywhere. I wasn't really feeling that great
Hmm.
psychologically, and I was like, okay, I'll just try this language thing. And you
Hmm.
realize that it's not the languages necessarily. I mean, it's not what you pick, it's who you meet and what you do with it. So if you put
Exactly.
your mind to something, it can be a really positive experience to feel progress, which many people sadly don't feel in their normal day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's. I mean, it's very deep. I mean, good start to the episode. We're going straight to the deep problems, but one comment I wanted to mention to you, I don't know what you think, is I also learned a little bit that going abroad didn't solve my problems either. Like
Yes.
it it maybe in some cases made them worse. Like for instance,
Hmm.
I realized when I moved to Budapest that I felt quite alone suddenly.
Hmm.
Whereas at
Yes.
home, at least you had your family right next to you, and you had a circle of friends and stuff. And I realized that yeah, you had them physically, but you could still feel kind of lonely or by yourself in your home country next to your family. So I don't know if you had the same experience early on, but
Yeah.
I definitely felt like that it's not going to solve your deepest problems, but it might kind of reveal them in a more direct way, and then you can work on them maybe. Obviously, it's going
Exactly.
to differ for everyone, but so that's what I experienced.
I do agree. I think short term view, it does not solve your problems at all. And short term, it might, or you might think that it even makes it worse because you feel lonely. But in the end, this is exactly what I mean. This process of like feeling lonely, which is just part of life, and just means that you finally, for me at least, that you finally get to this point where you're willing to work on things, where you're willing, because you could always just like, I don't know, look for people, and party, and whatever, but not really work on what is deep inside of you, and
Hmm.
what really matters to you. And I think, at least for me, as I said, 10 years ago, I would have given you completely different answers, and,
Right.
and we could also do this podcast now, and I would tell you, yeah, this is, everything is great. And I think in general it is, but I think it would be a very superficial show. And what I have seen from your podcast, it's a very deep podcast, which I really admire you for, that you do this as well. And I think doing or giving this kind of image of you, that everything is just perfect, and nobody would like really connect to that. And I think people out there should also connect to what you do with this podcast. And for my experience, it was definitely me 10 years ago. I would have never said what I say right now, but uh, I think I short term, it didn't help me, and I had also those like loneliness problems a lot. And but then I always found a solution. I always found people to I don't know, to be with, and to not feel lonely. But in the end, when I realized that this like feeling lonely also helps me in the end, it took me a while, and I also think life makes this. And for me, it was definitely also, I started being negative about my home country, and about my home region as well, which is, as I said, from the countryside. And I think it was maybe in 2017 when my dad passed away, and it was very like from one day to the other. and well, 2 years ago in 2017, I went to Germany then, and I stayed there for a while. After 8 years or so, I stayed with my mom and with my sister, and I started enjoying this country again after
Mm.
such a long time. And then obviously things like that in life, yeah, you have to deal with them. I mean, you know it by yourself. And so I think this is really what made me realize, okay, now when I go back to Mexico now, it's not anymore running away. It's rather like taking the distance and continue working on it, and also allowing myself to feel sad sometimes, or lonely, or whatever. And yeah, because in the end, those moments help me in long term.
Yeah.
Uh,
You have to move
yeah.
forward always, and if there's not a little bit of pain or a little bit of discomfort, or if that feeling that you're outside your comfort zone, then I don't think you will ever really improve your mental state, or your
Yes.
situation really. But
Exactly.
it's a very tough, I feel like anyway, because I thought about, okay, how can we, what is actually, what is the problem actually? I think in society today, I think one of the biggest problems is probably the pressure on young people to, perform. Like basically, okay, you're starting in school, you have to get all A's, and you have to get a good degree, you have to get a good job.
Yes.
So this endless
Especially in our
pressure.
cultures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This endless pressure just stacks up, and on average, not everyone can be amazing at everything, and
Mm-hmm.
academics or schoolwork is a very small part of society, or
Yes.
like there's so many other things you could be doing. So people are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I didn't do well in school. I didn't do well here and there," and then you just kind of realize that, oh, nothing works. It's not worth it. Uh,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It's kind of a scary statistic that I think is about 1 in 2 Americans, for instance, have been prescribed, what do they call them, the the uptake inhibitors, the happy pills as they call them, antidepressants,
Yeah.
and when you think about it, okay, maybe there's some overprescription going on, but even if it was like a third or a quarter or something who actually benefit from them, that's a huge part of a country where a very developed country, and I'm sure the
Yeah.
statistics in Scandinavia and Europe are not much worse.
Yeah.
So what is it that makes us so so stuck in our own mental hell? I mean, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know if you have any comments to add to that, but it's a big problem that it's kind of a big scary problem in that sense, because it shouldn't be like that. Yeah, you can have people who have terrible childhood experiences, like abuse, and maybe they have personal tragedies that would mess anyone up. But for most people, they don't even have that. They don't even have any traumatic experiences. It's just kind of the way the society is stacked against you. That you need to be like thin and tall and and have a great degree.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what you said. This is the problem. It's really all about society. For example, for me personally, I didn't have this feeling in school. Like I used to be always the best in school. So like for me, it's the contrary. I didn't have that I felt like, oh, society expects or whatever, that I have good grades or whatever. I used to always have the best grades in school. So that wasn't my issue. I think my issue was rather in my personal case, that I come from the countryside, and I used to be judged a lot for
Mm,
everything I did. And in the end, there is like no like worse or better situation. Being abused, well, is horrible, I believe. But also, if you have other issues that you have to deal with that are maybe not being abused, it can be as bad as the abuse feeling,
yeah, yeah.
and this. And the thing is just that society still doesn't talk about this enough, and I think this is why there's like you call them happy pills, are used that much. And I think if it rather comes like from the inner part, and this is why like people like you who do this podcast have such a huge, or can make such a huge impact as well, and allow people and to show people as well that this is totally okay to deal with things, and to make the best out of it. And I think as for language learning, where you need to find your way to learn a language, it's the same in life. And
Yeah,
if
definitely.
yeah, definitely. And I think like if you want to overcome your inner fears or issues or whatever, talk to people who have done this, and go to places where you can find those people. And usually when you travel, you find a lot of those people, and you connect with them. And then there are some people who are maybe already more advanced in terms of like self analyzing themselves, and there might be people who you meet and who just started with this whole process, and you feel that you could even make an impact in their lives because you talk to them, or because you talk about your own experience. And so this is what is great about this whole thing of traveling. And it does not necessarily have to be like a long distance trip or whatever. For me, for example, after my dad passed away, 2-3 months later, there was the first polyglot event that I've ever went to, which was the polyglot gathering in Bratislava. And honestly, I wasn't even sure whether I wanted to go or not, because back then I just didn't feel myself. I didn't feel very like confident to go there and to speak languages. And in the end, it was completely the opposite of what I had expected. I had so many great conversations, and this is just what it is all about in the end, that you let things out, that you dare to talk about it. Same again as for languages, that you dare to speak, right? That you dare to
Oh yeah.
overcome this fear. And so for me in my personal life, to connect those two parts, on the one hand to continue learning language, but on the other hand also to continue learning about myself, because I believe that this is something that we will never ever finish, is what helps me in general, and what I feel that I also, when I talk one-to-one with other people, that I can even help others with that experience that that life gave me, let's say.
I just want to take a brief moment to just talk about some things that are happening over at italki, which is the show's main sponsor. Italki is a tutoring platform where you can get lessons in pretty much every language, and usually you can find lessons very cheap, so it doesn't break the bank. It doesn't cost as much as evening classes, and you can do it over Skype from your home, in your underwear, whatever you prefer to do, and it's just a super convenient way to learn. And I think one-on-one tutoring is one of the most efficient ways to learn anyway, because the materials are so tailored to you. Your level is the only one the teacher needs to take care of, so you can definitely learn a lot in a very little time compared to traditional methods. Right now, there's two things going on in italki you need to know. So there's the goals competition, which I mentioned in the intro. So if you go to actualfluency.com/goals, you can see the competition there. Basically, you just have to share a photo or video with a hashtag, and you could win $500 worth of credits towards lessons, including a $500 flight ticket, or towards a flight ticket if you want to go far, where you can choose where to go, basically. So that's the grand prize. The other thing is the language challenge is returning on italki, so that starts February 1st. And basically you commit to taking a number of lessons, and then you can win prizes by completing those number of lessons. I highly recommend this because you can choose how many you want to go for, and having this kind of extra reason to do a lot of lessons can really boost your learning. Just be sure not to go overboard. It's easy to burn out after doing a lot of lessons in a short period of time. So yeah, check that out. You can find the challenge at actualfluency.com/challenge and see all the rules and prizes there. So hope you enjoy those initiatives from italki. And if you want to get started with a lesson, you get $10 free credit after doing your first lesson. So that's for everyone. You don't need a special link for that. If you use actualfluency.com/italki, they will be very happy, and they can see that it's worth for them to be part of this show. So anyway, let's get back to the show with Kirsten Cable talking about goals and New Year's resolutions. I would love to be a bigger part of that kind of message. I think here on the podcast, I definitely try to, as you've mentioned, I definitely try to talk about these things because I think learning languages is a great way to shake things up, get moving in your life, and also it encourages travel and socializing. It encourages
Yes.
getting out of your own house, which is first step towards getting out of a serious depression. I think you need to get out and listen to the birds and feel
Yeah.
the wind, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also very difficult because everyone is different, and also it wouldn't be like I would feel a little bit bad if every episode was like that because then maybe a lot of people listen a little bit like, okay, well, you know, you can talk about a topic enough for it to have the negative effect as well. So it's a fine balance. I feel like of that's all I mentioned that before, and I had a few episodes about this topic, and I always mention like I would love to do this more and stuff, but I also have to recognize that the more you talk about a certain thing, the more you think about it. So you have to be careful not to put yourself in that state as well. Even though you're mentioning, like, it's great to talk about things. I definitely think so, and that's something I haven't done my entire life. Like I was not brought up in a family where we talked about serious issues, like how you were
Yeah, this is
feeling.
our culture again.
Yeah, the Scandinavia, you know. And I don't know if there's a masculinity thing as well. As I grew a little bit older,
Could
maybe
be.
it's harder for. Well, I certainly think it's hard. I don't know how other guys feel, but I certainly think it's a strange thing to start sharing your deepest feelings to anyone, really, even if it's a good mate, because it seems a little bit character weakening, which is biologically hard for men to do, or at least for me. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it applies for everyone or the other gender as well, but it's a tricky one in any case, and also you also have to always be careful what you recommend people because it's a very touchy subject, and I'm not a professional anything, so I can only encourage people to do more and be more and learn more, and hopefully we have successfully done that today. Maybe a good finisher for this topic before we move on to some of the slightly lighter topics is how what do you do today to keep sort of mentally balanced and keep working on your things? Because one of the theories I have is that the kind of maybe not abuse and stuff, but the mental problems that we have had as maybe kids growing up or even older they kind of linger in the back of our mind somewhere. Like they have these small interference. So I think probably ideally everyone should just be in therapy all the time, like once a week or once a month or
I
something.
agree.
But
I agree.
do you have any other tips or tricks like that you do today to kind of keep yourself balanced and not fall into the traps of 10 years ago?
Yes, I think it's definitely talking about it, being honest about things, because I really also feel the need of others. For example, when I do my classes, when I teach classes here, especially one-to-one classes, but in general we only do small groups, so it can also be in the groups. And I feel that very often a German class that I teach turns into a kind of a life class, because obviously they talk about their lives, and then some of my students also already like started crying, and this is sometimes just really also necessary. And I think just for myself, what I really try to do, obviously there's like very obvious things. Exercise helps me a lot. Doing yoga, um doing things like I'm vegan, so this helped me a lot as well to get a lot of things, negative things out of my body, becoming vegan. But this does not mean that I'm perfect. I do drink alcohol from time to time. I do smoke from time to time. This is stupid. I know it, not good for me, but still I do it. Nobody's perfect. But I think just being open minded and like not trying to hide from something is in general what helps me to keep being balanced. To the first step, as you said, like it's hard to talk about things and also to share it with others, because well, you might not even trust them or whatever. But in the end, what do you have to lose, when
Mm,
you talk to others about it? What do you have to lose? There might be some people who make fun of it or whatever, but this is such a small percentage. And this is just because they are not ready to talk about their things. But 99%, I'd say, people you talk to, you can even help them with that. And this is also, I think, this kind of helping, which I always like doing in my life, which helping others is often a very selfish, or has also very selfish reasons. And in my case, I think like talking to others, helping others, listening to others, because as you said, I'm not a psychologist. I can't give recommendations, and I even think psychologists shouldn't give recommendations, but just listening and just showing them that it's okay to have those issues and to talk about it is what helps a lot, I think.
Yeah, and again, it's bringing the focus and kind of giving people permission to even kind of voice their feelings and deep thoughts about these topics. I mean, we should do a should do a weekly podcast about this instead, and just do like a therapy Tuesday or something where we just talk about one of these deep topics. I think that could be quite helpful. But I definitely agree that helping others helps yourself as well, because it's kind of like it's a greater purpose, and if you feel like your life has a greater purpose, then it's also easier to move on and sort of develop and grow even faster.
Exactly.
Because a lot of the
Yes.
times, and it's great that you brought up health as well. Not to make this an entire episode about how to improve your life and learn languages at the same time. Although maybe not a bad title. I feel like what happens when people get depressed and they mentally shut down, they could turn to alcohol, drugs, or
Yes.
fast food. I guess it's almost the same thing, drugs and fast food. But um, what happens is then you get less energy because you're not getting the right nutrients. You're getting too much sugar, too much salt, too many carbohydrates. Your body's just gonna
Yes.
get messed up, and then you don't have any energy. You sleep all day. So if you ever have been in that cycle, and I have definitely more than once, um, also part of the reason why I'm quite overweight today. I'm working on it. That's a tough one to find the reason for, though. I think I have a new theory that overweight people are not overweight because of current habits and ideas. I think they have probably a long-rooted psychological, maybe a
Yes.
trauma or a mini problem inside them. So for
Yeah.
me, exploring that that's something quite recent, because I just thought, okay, if I just go on a diet and do exercise, I will eventually lose weight. But it always came back because there's something more to it. There's something deeper,
Yes.
and that's very hard to deal with, of course. But hopefully, I can figure out that by exploring more and sticking more to these other things. But I also feel as I free up mental energy from, like now I have a fixed place to live, I have a job, I have, money sorted. I don't need to worry about those things, and therefore I can worry more about improving my psychology or
Yeah.
mental state anyway. Improve my
And
psychology.
I think for everybody out there, the first step is really always to accept that it is okay, and that it doesn't have to be something really tragic in your life that makes a negative impact. It could also be something that you think, oh, but this is such a small detail or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just the first step is always to accept that this is okay. And changing society is never going to happen in a year, or maybe not even within 5 years, but I think really step by step, same again as for language learning, step by step, you can make changes. And step by step, we can make changes for ourselves, but also in society. And I think one of those podcasts, for example, is one mini baby step to do so. And yeah, to get inspired as well to do so.
Yeah, and it will be hard, and I think the most profound lesson I had with this as well is that it's not your fault. Like some
Yes.
people, some people blame themselves for all kinds of things. Like the scene from Good Will Hunting, if people have seen that, where Robin Williams is giving therapy lessons to Matt Damon's character,
Hmm.
and Matt Damon's character was heavily abused, like physically. He was beaten by his dad, and Robin Williams. It's a great scene. Like if anyone watches that and they can do it without crying, then I'll challenge you. Because that is a touching scene. I don't know if it touched me because of the application to my life, or if just a powerful scene. Maybe people can comment about that. But in that sense, he just keeps saying it's not your fault because he was blaming himself for what happened to him when he like what his father was doing to him. And likewise, it's not uncommon, and I probably have thought the thought, maybe more than once. I lost my father when I was 14, 15, about
Hmm.
this many years ago. And there's definitely some unresolved grief there. And I definitely blame myself at times for that, which is ridiculous because I had nothing to do with it, of course, and I wasn't even anywhere near. But that's what the brain does. The brain will do a lot of stupid stuff. Like we have a
Yeah.
fantastic brain, it's amazing. It's the biggest by size, I think, for any being. But it can also mess you up big time because it will find all these reasons why you're not worthy of something or why you shouldn't do something. And it really works against you so hard that you have to constantly question your own your own thinking, and especially if you're in a kind of a rut, because then the brain will really sabotage you. Like, oh, I shouldn't go outside; it's cold. I shouldn't go visit with these friends because, oh, they'll notice I've gained a bit of weight. Who cares?
Mm.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just get out there and stop the excuses. And I mean, it's
Yeah.
deeper than that, of course, but the brain is really a sabotage of many mental images, I think.
Yeah, and also accepting this, like when you say like it's a long time ago for you and there is still some work to do, it's never too late. There's this like super
Definitely.
interesting picture that I've seen a couple of weeks ago on Instagram, I think, and it said like, we're all different, and some people become CEO at the age of 25, others at the age of 65, or it's never too early and never too late. And it's never too late to do something that you think, oh, I should have done this 10 years ago. Maybe, but maybe it just wasn't the time for you, but it might be today, or it might be in 10 years. And don't also
Yeah.
feel like bad about this when you're not able to do it right now. It's totally fine as well. Like this acceptance, I think, is the most important. And again, this is society that pressures us, that we have to do certain things on time. And same for language learning. Again, it's never too early, never too
Yeah.
late. uh, and if you don't feel ready right now, you might feel ready in summer, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's never too early, never too late, I believe.
For sure, yeah. Accepting who we are, where we are, is very strong as well, and that I think that's a good exercise as well. This mindfulness exercise of just taking stock of where you are, and realize there are things outside of your control that has
Yeah.
happened, and
Hmm.
just take a breath and then move forward from there. Actually, it's funny how breathing is so helpful. Like I recently started doing these like in the morning. I I'm not the best early riser, so if I get up a little bit too early, I'll feel kind of tired and groggy. So what I'll do is I go out again, get some fresh air, and then I'll just focus on my breathing for a 20-minute walk. And when I come back, I'm smiling all over the face because I changed my state from this. It's early
Amazing.
morning, and so it's
Yeah.
funny how something as simple as breathing, which we're all doing all
Yeah.
the time, and just focusing on the breathing kind of helps. I don't know anything that helps me as quickly physically
Yeah.
as focusing on my breathing, and that's kind of a meditation thing.
Yeah,
So I
it
think
is definitely.
so I think you probably know more than me on that, but that's a good tip as well. Just if you feel like everything is wrong and feels bad, just take a moment to appreciate everything and count your breaths, and you'll be amazed how quickly it lowers your anxiety levels and stress levels. And for me, it's like night and day. If I jump out of bed and go straight to doing something, could be on the computer, could be going to work or in the office, I'll feel terrible. I need that time to get ready, like that prime time to change the state. And I
Hmm.
think that that's for everyone. You can't just expect to jump out and be ready. You have to
Yes, exactly.
take time for yourself. That's what I'm saying.
And if you're able to make a habit out of this is even better. And it's for everything in life. It's just not also to be like in a good mood or bad mood. It's also, again, language learning. There's so many things that we like language learning and life lessons or whatever you would call this have in common. It's the same when you learn a language. And I just recently did an Instagram post about this, that it's very important to me that I take my time afterwards. So, for example, if I have I study, I don't know, a language for 30 lessons by myself, or I take a class or whatever, and then right after that, I rush into my daily life again.
Mm.
It doesn't have the same language learning effect as it has when I take my time after my learning session and just do meditation, for example, or yoga, or just sitting and doing nothing, watching my cat playing, or these kind of simple things in life. And if we can make a habit out of this amazing effect, to be honest.
Yeah, I try to do that as part of my morning routine. That's the easiest way I've made it a habit. Just before, I mean, I have my phone on flight mode, the computer isn't turned on, the TV isn't on, nothing is on, and for that hour or two, that's the only thing I'll do. Just get ready, have breakfast, get showered, do this kind of breathing, just sit down, and I'll also do some journaling, just write down whatever I'm thinking. I feel like that also helps me be
It does.
less anxious about what's to come. But I think it's interesting that uh, people who are listening to this who want to learn language, I think many times that is probably an indicator that they want more out of life, like they're
Yeah,
ambitious in a way.
yeah.
I don't think somebody who's going to France on holiday on for 2 weeks is going to listen to these episodes and get much out of them, if anything out of
No.
them. So that's what I also say to people listening is you have to also really appreciate your own ambition there, that you are actually doing something which a lot of people cannot do and won't do. So you're kind of like a hero in your own story, and that puts some pressure on us at times, for sure. Like I don't know how you feel, but I definitely feel pressure of like this podcast is a good example. It's great to do. It helps me. It helps a lot of people listening. But if I didn't feel stressed and anxious half an hour before recording every episode, I would be lying. It is tough, but it's really good as well. So that's what I'm saying is you have to take the good with the tough. And if you are listening to this and you want to learn languages, it's probably an indicator that you also want to do more with your life, whether that's traveling or career or what do I know, love or experiences or whatever you want to do. So write that down. What is it you want to do, and move towards it. And I think if you basically if you can learn a foreign language by yourself in a completely different language, I believe you can do anything. I think you can learn how to be a doctor. I think you can learn how to be a programmer. I think
Yeah.
you can be an astronaut even. you know, the sky's the limit because you have what it takes to self-start, learn what needs to be learned, and a language is a huge undertaking that some people underestimate greatly what it takes to learn a language, even sort of intermediate level. That's
hmm
a very big time investment. So maybe that's a good point in time
I
to.
couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. And in Mexico, there's one saying that just says "todo se puede." Everything is possible, and this is so true. And this is also something that I've learned so much from Mexico. What this country taught me as well is that really todo se puede, and everything is possible. And if you're listening to this, and that means as you already said, that you are ready to make a change, you are ambitious,
Mhm.
and this is not only for language learning. This could be like for anything in life, and this is pretty amazing, to be honest.
Could be a stepping stone, yeah, for
Yeah,
everything else. Like if you
yeah,
haven't taken the plunge on the language, then maybe it's a good sign that you should start doing that and then use that experience to improve whatever area of your life you feel like is lacking, whether that's health or yeah, even travels. I think travel is so underrated. Like I learned that a lot of Americans don't even have a passport. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I know there's a
Yeah.
big difference between New York and Idaho or something, Illinois,
Mhm.
but still, it's nice to see other cultures, and it's a really interesting feeling to be in a country where you don't speak the language at all.
Yeah, definitely.
I did that with Hungary, and that was really interesting. Like when I arrived there, it's almost like being in a movie or a book because every sign was just complete gibberish to me. I hadn't studied a word of Hungarian because I thought I was just going to be there for a weekend. But then I stayed for 18 months instead, but I just didn't understand anything most of the time.
And
S-
this is also amazing, allowing yourself to change your plans and allowing yourself to make it possible that this happens to you as well. Because you imagine I stayed there for a weekend, and if you're strict to yourself, if you're really strict, and then you would go back after that weekend. But if you allow
Mhm.
yourself to just let changes get into your life as well, then this is amazing.
Yeah, and I believe that if you do good things will happen to you.
Yeah.
And my progress or improvement started 4 or 5 years ago when I started this project, and I was just stuck at home. I didn't have any ideas and plans, but since then I've been able to travel to places I'd never go to. Canada, New York. I was in
Hmm.
Bratislava. I've been to Berlin several times. Like this wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't started this blog. And I was offered a
Yeah.
job in one of the first Berlin conferences that allowed me to go completely remote for a while, live in Hungary for 18 months. So I'm not saying that a lot of people will have that opportunity right now, like to just, pack up their things and live in 18 months in Budapest if they wanted to. But if you keep working on yourself and your projects and your languages, then I believe that good opportunities will come to
Yeah.
you as well. Like most people have found careers out of language learning. Like there's lots of bloggers and YouTubers who have,
Oh yeah.
someone like Benny who has basically taken a blog and turned it into a massive company,
Yeah.
best-selling author of multiple times. This is not unrealistic. These
Right.
things don't happen overnight either. They're very, what do you call it, step by step.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you might not think that it's important to record a video of yourself speaking bad Spanish or something because it won't matter. But every little bit helps, and it all adds up to the opportunities you get later. Like just for as an example, this is not to brag or anything, but one of my friends, and this is the opportunities that I have now because I've done all these things. One of my friends said the other day, why don't you come here for a month and learn Spanish? Like he's just started a Spanish
Hmm.
school. I'm like, I'm like, that's really random, but that sounds like fun. And
Yeah.
and I'm in a position now where I can accept crazy offers like that. But it would have never happened if I hadn't started with those very small first steps of
Yeah.
going to the first conference, realizing that okay, language learning is something I'll commit to, and to be
Hmm.
committed, I need accountability because otherwise I'll just give up. So I need to make a blog or a podcast, and that was the start of actual fluency. So
Yeah.
in a sense, this podcast has really done everything for me,
Yeah.
even if it's all indirect. Like
Yeah.
nothing directly has changed my life from the podcast. It's just everything has come as a side benefit, or it's
And
completely.
everything that will come, because it's not, there it's
Oh yeah,
it's well, a never ending story in the end.
for
And this is
sure.
also very, very interesting.
I've gone
Yeah.
from
Mhm.
mentally, I've gone from very close to the bottom. I was feeling terrible, had the worst health ever, to now I don't think you're ever a 10. That would be quite unrealistic. I think even the most balanced people have minor issues here and there that need to work on. But I would say
Yes.
I've progressed so much now. I'm closing in on a 5 or a 6, and that's a huge improvement. But I also realize
Yeah.
there's lots of work still to be done, and my ambition is not satisfied with what I have yet. I want to
Yeah.
reach more people. I want to contribute more to to the language learning success of the world, and hopefully in so doing, bringing people a little bit closer together. And maybe we'll see how this goes, and then take
And
it from there.
you will, I'm sure, because you're just yourself, and I find this very, very inspiring. Actually, well, this podcast got my attention because of your episode about this whole depression
Hmm.
thing, and I think this is something, we're all different. I had a very good talk with some girls at the last polyglot gathering where we talked about this, that we are all different and we can all contribute to this language community, something very, very different. For some people, it might be about this like very, very personal and very deep stuff. For others, it might be more about like general, let's say, I don't know, from grammar tips to other things, reading sessions, or in my case, I combine it now with fitness as well, and we can all contribute to something very well, to something big, and help each other. And this is what I like also very much about this language community, like worldwide community. And I find it very like pretty amazing, to be honest. Yeah.
Wonderful group of people, and that was pivotal for me as well in 2014 when I came to the first polyglot gathering. I didn't know anyone, and at this time I had released 3 episodes of the Actual Fluency podcast, so obviously nobody had heard them. There were 20 listeners or something each episode. And I came there, and even even one of the people I had on the podcast didn't recognize me. So really, really
Yeah.
starting small, I didn't know anyone. I just knew one person that I'd written a little bit with, so I had like a partner in crime because we were like, okay, we don't know anyone. This is like really weird. But people, I don't know what it is about. I think again it comes back to ambition. I think if you want to learn languages, and if you have learned a lot of languages, you are a special kind of person.
Yeah.
And my experience at the first polyglot gathering was, wow, these people are just incredible. Not only do they
Yeah.
speak all these languages, but they're some of the warmest and most welcoming, hospitable people I've ever met. And it was
Yeah.
across the board. Yeah, there were some people
Mhm.
I didn't really connect with at all, like that, and that's to be expected. But there was
Mhm.
not 1 milligram of negativity in that room at any
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
coming with maybe Danish, English, and some German. So I'm not exactly a hyper polyglot by any definition. So you can be worried about going in there and thinking, okay, what are they going to think about someone like me? And there was just nothing, and they was just so well received, and even a listener came up to me, and it was really touching, and yeah, so it's a great first experience. But I think if you go to any event today, I would be surprised if you didn't have the same experience
Yeah. Yeah.
because
I
the
agree.
group of people doesn't like the feeling of the group doesn't change. Yeah, the group might
Yeah.
get bigger, but everyone is there for similar reasons, and it's just that personal profile is just lovely, and I feel so home in at these events because the vibe and people's feeling. So that's a big recommendation for me. Just go to these
Yeah.
events wherever you can, if at all possible.
Exactly. If the listeners out there are at this stage of life where they feel like they must change something, they don't know exactly what, but they feel that something in their lives must be changed. I think we all have been at this point, or we currently are, or we will be. This is quite normal. It's just like whatever you want to do, if you're surrounded by people who are doing it, it inspires you, and they don't judge you. And it's, well, definitely for the language community, there's like positive environment and positive spirit as well. And yeah, and in the end, it inspired me 100%. Like when I came there the first time a year and a half ago, I already had my language business. Everything went already pretty well, but it was more like on a local, yeah, more local, because it was more in Mexico, and all those polyglots and all those people who also work with languages as I do showed me that this is not only local. This can be huge, and this can be worldwide as well. And this was thanks to being surrounded by people who do things like this. And yeah,
Oh yeah,
hilarious, really.
that's an old saying. You have to surround yourself with good people, and
Yeah.
luckily this is very easy in the language learning community. Um, do you want to just quickly, you mentioned your own language business. I think that's a good kind of segue into, the next step. So let's say you're really in love with languages, you've learned a couple maybe, and you're looking for opportunities to use them as in a full-time or professional capacity. Can you share maybe your story of going from, let's say, moving countries around, learning languages, and then actually becoming a language professional, so to speak? How long were you doing it before, and what is it you do today?
Yeah, so basically I mean I worked with languages, but it wasn't the focus. So for example, I lived in Switzerland for many, many years. I worked for very big international companies, and people would say, "Oh, wow, your job is amazing." But honestly, it didn't feel that way. Like from the outside point of view, it was maybe amazing because the company name was huge or whatever. But in the end, I what I felt was that we've launched a product maybe every 5, 6 weeks. And I felt like, who needs that? Like, what is my impact? Like, seriously, like, what is my impact? I've learned a lot, definitely, like in terms of marketing and everything. I've learned a lot. It was a great experience. But the impact that I wanted to make and that I felt that was also, yeah, my, how would you say that? My, purpose in life,
Mm.
maybe. It sounds a bit exaggerated, but I really felt that it was my purpose to have this impact. And yeah, it was just not for me. And then when I moved so I did this for a couple of years, worked in like huge companies and had great experience. And then I decided to do my master's studies again, not because I wanted this title. Honestly, I knew already that it was never about the title. It was more about this experience again to study. And I did study in my master's degree management, which is like the most stupid title ever, I think. Um, but still, I've learned so much because we were, I don't know, about 35 different nationalities, and already this was great, like to connect with other people, and I really like business, to be honest, and I found it very interesting, and I started focusing more like on startup communities and helped startups, and but still, it was still like even though that impact was already bigger, it was still not what I really felt was right for me. And so then I finished my master's studies. That was actually the reason why I moved to Mexico, because I did my last semester here,
Mhm.
and I decided that I wanted to learn Spanish, and this is why I chose Mexico for my last semester of my master's degree. And it was really this country and the people here that showed me that if you want to do something in life, in Mexico, you have the saying tener huevos, which means literally having, well, eggs. But it means that to just dare doing stuff. And
Mhm.
here I felt like in a very natural way that doing something with languages, I've been teaching German wherever I used to live before, but I never thought that I could make my living out of this. And yeah, again, here I started a job in a huge German company here, and it was just not what I wanted. The impact that I had was so small, and so I just decided, well, I'm going to do my own stuff, and it just, without like realizing it, it became bigger and bigger and bigger. And it wasn't my plan to have like a business in Mexico, not at all. It was really, well, it just happened, let's say it, and I let it happen as well. And yeah, what I do right now, so I have a language school here in Mexico with my lovely business partner. We have a team of almost 50 people now, which is,
Wow,
yeah, it's
that's
huge
massive.
now. I mean, not all of them are working full time with us. We have many freelancers working with us, but they're not even counted within those 50 people. But let's say we have a lot of like part-time people working for us. They have maybe at the same time their blog, or they have another part-time job, or they're starting their business and they want to do something like just to earn some money. And so what we do basically is that it's a language institute where we teach languages, but we try to analyze as well what went wrong in school usually, because as we all know, when we learn languages in school, like maybe there is a 2 3, I don't know, percent that really yeah, succeeds in this language learning when they do it in school or in university. And so what we do is that we limit our groups to 5 people. We work exclusively with native teachers. We have currently 9 languages that we offer, and we limit our groups, as I said, to 5 people. And in addition to that, we think about like new ways of integrating your language learning into your like daily life. And we've recently launched Burn and Learn, it's called. And it's a method to study German vocabulary in this case, because we started just with German to focus first on German. And it's basically very easy exercises. So you don't need to be like the fittest person on earth to do the exercises. It's just really doing exercising while repeating German vocabulary. And the effect is amazing, to be honest. I do it myself with, for example, Nahuatl vocabulary. I learn Nahuatl right now, which is an indigenous language from Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And so Nahuatl is a language that has nothing to do with all the languages that I've learned before. And so I need to find a way to really remember vocabulary. And remembering vocabulary is just part of the language process. And so doing it while you do fitness exercise is just, for example, I do it usually in the mornings. I do it maybe from 7 to 8. And then I feel like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've done 1 hour of physical workout, plus I've done 1 hour of vocabulary.
Yeah.
And also like really all those vocabulary groups that I learn while doing exercise. This is the vocabulary that I best know in the end. And yeah, we had very, very positive feedback from our live sessions that we have done at like different events here in Mexico, but also at the Langfest in Montreal, Canada last year, and also at the Polyglotar, which is a conference in Brazil. And yeah, the feedback was very, very positive, and this is why we decided to launch a YouTube channel for this, which we did about 3 months ago. And yeah, it's very much a learning process
That's
as well
super
for
cool.
me.
Super
Yeah,
cool.
and
So what's
really an
the company
amazing
called?
method.
Just to add that in, if people are interested in some of
It's
these.
called Burn and Learn, and then you find it under Burn and Learn Languages. Burn and Learn.
It's a good idea, really, because again, I think health is a big part of being successful in languages, and successful in anything, really. And there was also, I think I read a study once, so maybe I'm making this up. Sorry if I am, but I read something about how after exercise the brain is more susceptible to learning things.
Yeah, you're not making this up.
Okay, that's good.
This is not at all. This is a study that was published about 2, 3 years ago, I think, by the New York Times, and they did an experiment in China, and so it wasn't New York Times who did the experiment. I don't remember who did the experiment, but they published it, and it was an experiment for English vocabulary learning in China, and so they had 2 focus groups, and one of them was doing the the learning process, the vocabulary learning while doing exercise, and the other one without any exercise. And then obviously they compared the 2 groups,
Mm-hmm.
and very obvious result, right? Who had the better results? Obviously the focus group that did it while exercising. And also they checked the results as well, like long-term results a couple of months later. And it's not only that they knew it better right after the learning session, but also long term,
Mm.
it was way better. And it's still not, there is still like no clear result whether the best is to do exercise before you learn the language, while you're doing the
Mm.
language, or afterwards. But this effect that, I mean, the brain is studied only up to like 10% of what the brain, there's still so much that we have to learn about our brains, but that the impact is there, or that the effect is there, this is for sure. And for me, I'm not very much a scientific person, to be honest. I trust what I see in life,
Yeah.
what works for me, what I see with my students. And I have done this as well with my students. We have done the same kind of focus groups. I've done this with people, so they are anyway in our like language course that we offer. And we've done with a couple of them the exercises, and with the others not. And all of those who did the exercises had a couple of months later better German results than the others in
Yeah.
terms of vocabulary, obviously, right? And yeah, so the results are amazing, and it's really easy exercise. And this is, I think, important because we don't focus on people. For example, when I started Burn and Learn, and I was asking obviously friends what their opinion, and I had a couple of friends who were really into fitness and who told me, honestly, I wouldn't like it because for me, the fitness exercise would be too easy. I wouldn't have enough fitness with that. And I, in the end, decided that this is not really for people who doing like professional fitness training and want to learn languages. No, it's rather the other way around. If you anyway learn a language and if you anyway need to study vocabulary, just combine it with easy fitness exercises. Feel the effect, and you will see that it's going to help you a lot, a lot, a lot. Plus, you feel way better as well because you worked out, right?
Yeah, for sure. Uh, I,
Yeah.
I can share my theory as to why it works.
Oh.
I've not read this anywhere. I've no basis for this at all. But my silly theory is that when we were a primitive, when the brain was more primitive, when there was like real danger, let's say call it dinosaurs or whatever beast that could eat us or something. Um, if you were exercising, I mean, back then you wouldn't exercise for fun. You would only exercise if you were in danger because there was no fast food, there was no all these added stuff. So it was virtually impossible to be unhealthy, I can imagine. Maybe you might be underweight and malnourished, but you definitely wouldn't be overweight, I would imagine. But anyway, so if you exercising and you're getting the heart rate up high, it's probably because you're reacting to some kind of threat that could potentially kill you, and that's the brain's most primary function is to not kill you. Basically, it needs to keep you alive. And my thinking was that years and years and years of evolution and doing this means that the people who learn most after these events, these fitness or high heart rate, they would know for next time that if they heard that sound again or that movement or that scenario, they would be more quick to take notice, and that's the kind of genetic line that has continued. I don't know if that has any
Interesting.
any
Very
merit,
interesting.
but it's just
Super interesting. Never
that.
thought about it, but I would definitely give it a thought. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, like I said,
Yeah, yeah.
there's absolutely no scientific basis for any of this. But I just thought, well, that kind of makes sense that why learning might be a little bit more like the brain might be learning more when we exercise or right after maybe even because we needed to learn those things to not get killed by dinosaurs afterwards. Who knows? but uh,
Exactly.
but Anya, it's been a real pleasure. I didn't expect this to go so deep right away. I didn't expect this to be such a deep episode, but I thank you for opening up that discussion and kind of yeah, inviting it on the show. I think it's brave of you as well. Put yourself out there, and together we hopefully we can help a few people change their life a little bit along the way. If
Thank you.
if people have and if they want to get in touch with you for any reason, is there a place that's better than others, like a website, or where would you like people to go?
So I think, well, we do have our company website, which is called Zaloa Languages. Zaloa means basically to learn. It's also from the Nahuatl language, Zaloa Languages. But this is not me who would answer the messages. So if it's really with me in person, I would say the most I use is definitely Instagram. And this is Anja from Alemania. And important, Anja is spelled the German way. So it's Anja,
Hmm.
and then from Alemania. And yeah, I really. Uh, I think I answer almost every like at least real conversation on Instagram. If somebody just texts me hi, then I might not just write back.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
And I don't
but
think the
if there is a
listeners
real
are
message,
like that. Yeah, the people listening
yeah,
to this show are not like that for sure. I mean,
yeah.
they might want to get to know you better, of course, but yeah, I think they if anyone wants to get in touch, it's probably because they have some. I mean, maybe they just want to thank you for the show, which I certainly want to
Yeah,
do
and
as well.
I try to go as many language conferences or events in general. So since I live in Mexico, I don't go to every event in Europe, but I try to go to at least one event in Europe every year. And whenever you see me there, which we both said we can highly recommend all listeners to go to those kind of events. Whenever you see me there, like really feel free to talk to me. I'm always super, super happy to meet new people and also to have like real and deep conversations and not only telling like, yeah, my life is perfect.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is like that. But that means you're
Yeah.
going to Montreal in August.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't decided yet to what kind of events or to which event I'm going to. I really want to go to Japan this year.
Ooh, yeah.
So this is definitely on my list. And then in Europe, I'm not yet sure. I might be in Berlin end of March for the, how do they call it? This,
Influencer Summit.
exactly. I'm very, very much interested in this, but it depends a little bit on my plans, or maybe to the Polyglot Gathering again in Bratislava. I'm not yet sure about this, but I would definitely share it always on my social media channels. So
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
great event. I think it's for me, it's my favorite. I was so sad to miss it last year, or maybe I've actually missed it 2 years in a row by accident, because I was moving jobs both times right around that time. But that's probably the best event I think for new. Well, I mean, you can go to any event and you won't find any problems and you will have a great time. But I think the social nature of the gathering, like it's spread out over more days.
yeah,
It's quite, it's a nice time of the year. There's lots
yeah,
of people there. I think it's a
yeah.
great first event to go to if you are in Europe and you're thinking about if you should go to any of them. I mean, I'd say go to all of them if you can. But I'm just saying the
Yes,
gathering for me is definitely the best. Just gives me lots of time to catch up with my friends that I've gotten to know from these conferences, and like I said, it's spread out. It's what's it, 4 days of talks and then a day on
yeah,
each side for social events. So you can really take your time. You don't need to fret about getting to talk to everyone on 1 or 2 days. So that'd be great, and I hope to make it to Canada as well. For me, it is tough from Europe to go to both Japan and Canada. Definitely,
yeah,
and it's not just financially, although that's a point as well. But it's also just the effort because
yeah,
it's like 20 hours to Japan, I think,
yeah.
and Canada is not much better unless you get like more expensive direct tickets. And so yeah, I'll hope to make it to everyone, and hopefully I'll meet you somewhere around the world. If not, we'll have to start doing the
So do I.
the Polyglot Therapy podcast instead.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If this was on YouTube, I'd say, put it in the comments if you want to see this. But just let us know by other means
Let us know, exactly.
if that's something that would be of value. Because I mean, it'd definitely be of value to me personally. I know,
Yeah,
talking about these
same.
things and opening it up, but I don't know if other people would find it interesting. So definitely comment and let us know. But thank you so much, Anja. It's been a fantastic pleasure to have you. And like I said,
Thank you for having
can't
me.
wait to see you somewhere around the world.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Actual Fluency Podcast. I really appreciate having you here today. Just before you leave, I just want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, which is italki. Italki is a tutoring platform where you can find affordable tutors for every language in the world, pretty much. So get started today and get a free $10 credit when you book your first lesson. If you go to actualfluency.com/italki, and that's spelled ITALKI. So give it a go and feel how tutoring can really boost and enhance your language learning